When she said those words, "Why can't you be successful like my ex?" something inside me went still. Not broken, not angry, just still. It wasn't the first time Avery compared me to someone else, but this time it sounded final, like a judgment carved in stone. We were sitting in the kitchen of our small Austin apartment, the one I had chosen because it was close to my startup's co-working space. But to her, it was uninspiring. Her ex, Michael, was the kind of man who bragged in captions, posted his Tesla's dashboard, and called it ambition. I used to laugh at people like that, until that night when laughter turned into silence. I stared at the flickering stove light, feeling my chest tighten in a way that wasn't pain, it was clarity. I looked up and said calmly, "You're right, he was better." She blinked, confused, expecting me to fight, to defend myself, to give her the satisfaction of drama. But I didn't. I stood, picked up my laptop, and walked into the bedroom. That silence unsettled her more than anger ever could. That night, something inside me changed. I realized she didn't care about love. She cared about appearance, about status, about what people saw when they looked at us. I had been building something, a real product for creators, something useful. But she wanted the illusion of success, not the patience it took to earn it. That night, I decided I would not prove her wrong. I would let her be right. For now. The next morning, she acted normal, sipping her latte and scrolling through her phone, talking about other people's wins while ignoring the man trying to build his own. I kissed her forehead before leaving, but that version of me, the one who needed her approval, died in that moment. I spent the next few weeks living at the co-working space, coding through nights and coffee mornings. My co-founder, Nate, said I looked possessed. "I'm not building for users anymore," I told him. "I'm building for revenge." He laughed, not realizing how serious I was. Revenge, for me, wasn't about hurting her. It was about becoming untouchable. I restructured everything, rebranded our app, rewrote the entire back end, and started reaching out to investors myself. One of them, Victor, saw something others didn't. You're not chasing hype. You're chasing purpose. I smiled, thinking he was wrong. I was chasing silence. At home, Avery started networking more, her word for late nights with people who smelled like ambition. I didn't confront her. I let her think I was still the same quiet, steady man she could manipulate. One night, I came home early and found her sitting across from Michael, her ex, pretending it was professional. He looked smug, she looked nervous, and I looked amused. "Helping her with a brand project?" I asked, shaking his hand. "You always had great timing, Mike." They both fumbled through excuses, but I didn't raise my voice. I just smiled. That night, I didn't sleep. I coded for 36 hours straight, finishing the beta version that would change everything. 2 weeks later, I closed a $375,000 deal with Victor's firm. I didn't tell her. I waited. She kept asking why I was distant. I told her I was just tired. Then one day, I said I'd be going to San Francisco for meetings. She laughed. "For your little app?" I smiled. "Yeah, for my little app." That trip changed everything. Investors loved it. We got interest from 2 major firms. When I came home, she barely looked up. "How was your meeting?" she asked. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You're right. He was better." Then I walked away smiling, because for the first time, I knew what power felt like.
Success doesn't explode. It seeps in quietly while others are too busy doubting you. Within months, Streambase had traction. Real users, real revenue, real investors. My phone didn't stop buzzing, but I stayed silent online. No posts, no flexing, no fake hustle talk. Avery wouldn't have understood anyway. She moved out under the excuse of needing space to focus on herself. I helped her pack her boxes, smiled, and said, "You'll find what you're looking for." What she didn't realize was that I already had. The first night without her felt like an exhale I'd been holding for years. No noise, no judgment, just peace. Streambase grew. A small tech blog wrote about us. My inbox filled with calls from the same investors who once ignored me. We rented a small office downtown, glass walls, clean desks, that smell of fresh paint and ambition. On the first day, Nate brought champagne. "You did it, man," he said. I smiled. Not yet, because I wasn't done. She'd see it, and when she did, it wouldn't be a victory. It would be a mirror. 3 weeks later, Avery texted me. "Hey, can we talk, just to clear the air?" I said sure. We met at the cafe where she once called my dreams cute. This time, I arrived late. She looked polished, confident, a little nervous. "You look different," she said. "So do you," I replied. "How's life?" "Busy," I said. "My team's been growing." Her brow lifted. "Team?" "Yeah," I said. "That little app turned into something." She blinked, forcing a smile. "That's great. I'm happy for you." I nodded. "You should be. You were right. Success changes people." She didn't know whether to thank me or cry. Over the next few weeks, she started calling more. I'd answer sometimes, just enough to keep her curious. Once, she sent a voice note late at night. "I just miss how simple things were. Before." I saved it. Not out of nostalgia, but as proof that people always return to the peace they destroyed. Then came the tech event. Victor invited me to speak on a panel. I wasn't interested until I saw the sponsor list. Michael's company. I couldn't resist. I showed up in a navy suit, calm and silent. Halfway through the event, I saw them. Avery and Michael, perfect for each other in all the wrong ways. She saw me, froze. I walked up. "Avery," I said. "Mike." He smirked. "Heard your thing's doing well. Stream something?" "Streambase," I said. "Yeah, we closed Series A last week." His grin faltered. She blinked fast. "That's amazing," she whispered. "Congrats." I smiled. "Thanks. You were right. Success really does change everything." I spent the rest of the night talking to investors while her eyes followed me like regret with mascara. A few days later, she called again. "You looked happy," she said softly. "I am." She hesitated. "Do you think maybe we could—" I interrupted. "You once asked why I couldn't be successful like your ex. I thought about that for months. I didn't want to be like him. I wanted to be better." She was quiet. "You are," she said finally. "Yeah, but you don't get to be part of that version." I ended the call and smiled. That night, I looked out at the city and realized I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I was living it.
By autumn, Streambase wasn't a startup, it was a phenomenon. 1 million users, national coverage, investors lined up. Yet the bigger it got, the quieter I became. I had nothing to prove anymore, just everything to protect. One Friday, Victor walked into my office. "You're gonna love this," he said, dropping a portfolio on my desk. It was a proposal for a brand partnership from, ironically, Michael's firm. My eyebrows rose. "They want to handle our marketing," Victor said. "Joint influencer deals. Win-win." I smiled. Set up the meeting. When Michael and Avery walked into my office, I almost laughed. She looked beautiful, professional, but uneasy. He looked smug. "Hey man, heard about your app," he said, shaking my hand. "Congratulations." I nodded. "Thanks. Let's hear your pitch." He rambled about brand synergy while I watched Avery avoid my eyes. When he finished, I leaned forward. "Good pitch," I said. "But we don't work with firms that compromise loyalty." His smile vanished. Avery froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" he asked. I smiled softly. "You'll figure it out." Then I stood and ended the meeting. The silence that followed was worth more than any deal. Weeks later, I saw a viral post. Avery's Healing Journey blog. She was writing about toxic men and personal growth. The irony nearly made me laugh. Then I saw a comment from Michael, "Wish you'd taken your own advice." I didn't need to read between the lines. They'd imploded. I found a Reddit post later, written by her anonymously, about a man who changed after success. The replies were brutal. "You wanted money, not love. You got what you asked for." I closed it without smiling. I wasn't angry. I wasn't gloating. I was done. Months later, at a Los Angeles conference, fate decided to give me closure. I was being honored as one of the year's top innovators when I ran into her again. She approached me softly, saying, "You look happy." "I am," I said. She sighed. "I made mistakes. I didn't know how to love someone who was still building." I nodded. "You wanted the finished product. I was under construction." Tears welled in her eyes. "Do you ever miss me?" she whispered. I looked at her, remembering everything. Our apartment, our fights, the silence. Then I said, "No. I miss who I was when I thought you loved me, but that man's gone." She asked, "Do you hate me?" "No," I said. "Hate's just love's echo. I don't hear it anymore." She exhaled and whispered, "I'm sorry." I nodded. "Don't be. You were my greatest lesson." Then I walked away. That night, I found an email from her. "I hope you find someone who never makes you prove your worth." I smiled, deleted it, and finally slept without ghosts.
Time passed and success became normal. Streambase had its own floor in a skyscraper, and I had peace instead of pride. People called me the architect, the silent storm. But I didn't care for labels. All I cared about was never being that uncertain man again. One day, Victor invited me to a charity gala. "Good PR," he said. I went reluctantly. The ballroom was filled with people pretending to be important. That's when I saw her again. Avery. Dressed in emerald green, still beautiful, but with the kind of sadness that success can't hide. She walked over slowly. "You look successful," she said softly. I smirked. "You sound surprised?" "Not surprised," she said. "Just proud." I tilted my head. "Proud of what? The man you didn't believe in?" She sighed. "I was wrong, Ethan. People change." "So did I replied. "I stopped measuring my worth by people who didn't know their own." We stood there in silence as the crowd shimmered around us. "Do you ever think about us?" she asked. I thought about it. The laughter, the chaos, the night she broke something I didn't know was fragile. "I think about who I was when I loved you," I said finally. "That man thought success could fix people, that love could prove worth. But I buried him with the life you left." Her eyes shimmered. "And this version? This version doesn't need an audience." She looked down. "Do you hate me?" I shook my head. "No. Hate is effort. You're just a memory." She smiled sadly. "You deserve peace." "I have it," I said. "You taught me how to earn it." She whispered, "Goodbye, Ethan." I nodded. "Goodbye, Avery." She walked away, fading into the noise. Later, standing on the balcony overlooking the city that once crushed me, I realized something. The goal was never revenge. It was self-respect. A journalist asked me, "What's your advice for people chasing success?" I said, "Stop chasing people who make you forget what you're capable of." That night I wrote one line in my notes. "The moment you stop needing their apology is the moment you've won." Months later, I heard she started her own agency in Seattle. She was doing okay. I felt nothing, not anger, not pity, just peace. Because the true revenge wasn't her regret, it was my indifference. As I turned off the lights in my office one night, I whispered to myself, "They'll compare you to others until you become the standard. Let 'em." Then I smiled, calm, unshakable, and finally free.